Welcome to the Exploring New England podcast with Ryan Zipp, where each week I will be talking about what makes this historic region such an amazing place to enjoy. From the scenic views to road trip ideas to where to grab the best eats and much more. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Exploring New England podcast with me, Ryan Zipp. A big thank you and shout out to everyone who has watched or listened to episode 1, 2, or hopefully both. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I think the response has been more than I ever could ask for to get things going off. Episode 1 kind of just laid the groundwork a bit of what the podcast was kind of going to be about and follow, and also give a bit of a history about me, where I come from, and also what got me into artistic things, photography, and traveling, and then kind of to where I am today. Then episode 2 was fun. I took you guys with me to one of my favorite cities in New England, in Portland, Maine, and kind of gave a rundown to the parts of the city there, where you can grab some food, grab a coffee, a handful of spots that I have personally stayed there that love and could recommend, and just how it's a great place to visit any time of year, but especially those times like now that are more off season when there's just not a lot going on to chase specifically, and if you just need a getaway, Portland is definitely one of those spots that you should look into. So I think we've had a really good start to the first couple episodes here. And again, if you are just listening, the options there are Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music. And if you have been following along there, I think it helps me out a little bit if you go on and give a rating, hopefully 5-star. I think that just kind of helps me out, get more visibility, and maybe we can get some new listeners to join along with us. And then if you're seeing me here in my human form, then you are watching on YouTube, where I've started a new channel there called Exploring New England. And this way we have a visual. And then throughout the episode, if you've watched any of the previous episodes, I'll put up over here, I think most likely, photos or even some video clips that will go along with whatever I'm talking about. So it just kind of gives an extra element to it. So if you have only been listening, maybe check in to the YouTube sometime to get that effect. I know if you're at the gym or you're driving or there's certain things where the audio works, that's totally makes sense. And then if you are following along on YouTube, just make sure to hit the subscribe button. That, again, will help grow the channel and then open up some more opportunities for me and for us together down the line. So, yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a recap of the first 2 episodes. And then just a few things that would help me out. And then that way you guys also will know when a new episode pops up. And like the last 2, every Thursday, the episode's going to come out. So it gives you a chance. Kind of the week is not quite over, but it's starting to get to the good part. And hopefully hanging out with me for a little stretch will make it a little better. So here we are on to episode 3. And this is coming out kind of right at the beginning of April. So when I was thinking about what would be a good topic to kind of cover and speak about with my experience, I always think of like when we actually get into April. To me, that's the start of spring, not end of March. And a lot of the things that keep me occupied and targets to chase through spring and summer are the different blooms we have here in New England, with a lot of them being very iconic and at all these awesome places, and just to see them at those. So the first bloom that really kicks up and gets things started on a large scale are daffodils. And this year they seem to pop up a little early, even in my yard, than the last few years. earlier, I should say. But the temps seem to cool down. So now, from what I've seen so far anyway, it seems like they're a little bit more on average. But it's hard to tell, and I guess we'll have to see how the weather goes in the next week or so to set the tone. But it's definitely the thing now to be chasing if you're looking for some day trips or road trips. So I thought that I would dedicate this episode to the different spots around New England that you could do that. And there's one spot in particular that I think is kind of the epicenter and the most widespread, and also the spot I've been to the most for the daffodils. So I thought that's what would be the kind of main component here. And then I'll follow it up with some other great spots I've been, and then even a few that I haven't personally been to yet, but I know are other options for it. So I thought I'd include them in as well. So here we go. The first spot that we are talking about that we're going to cover is Newport, Rhode Island. And I'm sure a lot of you have been there, or at least know a good amount about the coastal city there. It's most known for probably just the Newport mansions that were the cottages of the elite way back in the day, which is kind of ridiculous because there's just insane marble interior and just, I mean, it's one of the most over the top kind of living quarters that I've ever walked through. And now you could check them out on guiding tours, and especially cool during the holidays. But yeah, Newport is also kind of where I always kick off my daffodil chasing. And I was actually just there this past Monday, day after Easter. I thought it would be a good little day afternoon trip, and also give me the chance to kind of check out where all the blooms in the different fields there were at. And I shared the kind of live status in my stories on Instagram. I'm sure most of you are following me on there already, since that's probably how you even know about the podcast. But if you happen to get here and don't follow me there yet, it's just at Ryan Zipp, my full name. So on there, I post regularly. Also, will share stories about what's going on. So I felt like it was a good time to stop by there. And what I found was most of the fields are, pretty solid bloom. I would say a lot of them are 2/3 to 90% in bloom. There are a few others that a little behind with some buds that didn't open yet. So I would say if you're thinking about heading there, or even if you hadn't thought about it before, but now you might after watching this, I would say the next few weekends or the next 2 weeks would probably be good to go. Starting anytime this kind of weekend through the next weekend. And then it's hard to say. You never know when they'll kind of be to that point beyond looking pretty anymore. So again, we're starting with Newport, Rhode Island here on our little daffodil tour around New England. So it kind of starts off the bat as soon as you get off the exit and you get on the main road there to kind of make your way to kind of downtown Newport. You start seeing patches of daffodils, sides of the road, in front of the cemeteries. So off the bat, you're met with it, and kind of sets the tone for what's to come. So also, as I go through these spots, there's really no specific order that you have to or should hit them in. I do think one spot that I found works best, and I enjoy anyway, end of day, in case you get a good sunset in the backdrop. So typically that's where I end up, and I think where I'll just end up here doing the little recap. So yeah, but again, feel free, write down the spots and hit them up however works best for you if you make the trip. So one of the first spots that to me doesn't really matter the time of day. It's kind of like it's a hidden little park. It's called Ballard Park. It's tucked in. It's inland away from the shore a little bit off of Hazard Road. And again, with all these spots, Google map them or just kind of search, and you'll get more info on how to get there. But it's just a kind of like an open field. You walk through a little path. There's not many spots for cars. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 there. Obviously, I'm sure during busier times with the booms, there might be more cars. It's not like it's a busy road. So if you go, just pull over as far as you can, as you should anywhere you stop where there's traffic around you. But the few times I've been here now, it has been a little bit of a wet path through it to get to the field. But it's not like you have to walk through water. But, just be mindful of some of these spots, especially after all the rain we've been having, that you could walk through a little bit of muck to get there, especially this spot. So, and I believe there's like, they said around 20,000 blooms, 20,000 daffodils in this field alone. So you kind of walk through the field and there's like a little pond on your left, and it's just kind of like one open field, and it's there's a pretty significant path down the middle. And as you're walking out, it's kind of, you have like the left part, the right part. So it's cool to walk down. And then when you get to the other end, you look back and there's a singular tree in the middle of the path. So kind of, as like any spot I go, I'm always trying to look for composition for photos. So I look for those kind of things. And that's where you'll probably see, I'll be posting some photos here. Again, if you're watching the YouTube version of the podcast. So, but it's like a really, again, you're not on the coast, so you don't see the ocean. And it's just a kind of basic park, but it is a really cool, solid field, again, with the path down the middle. So definitely could be a cool spot to go to if you want to get some shots of you, your crew, whoever you're with, family. And I think it's kind of a good spot to kind of set the tone to start off your daffodil adventure in Newport. But so that's the first spot I'm going to mention. Then after that, I would say, kind of make your way more downtown for the next spot. And that is at the Great Friends Meeting House. There's a field in front of it. And that is actually the oldest surviving house of worship in the entire state of Rhode Island. It was built in 1699, I believe. So really cool. And read something about how some of the early elites of the city would kind of go there, as I assume a lot of that, how that worked back then. But it's a really cool building. It's preserved. I think it's like a historic site. There's like a little playground in the back and then a field in front. And the daffodils there are kind of centered on one side. And when I was there on Monday, they were pretty good. I would say pretty close to fully in bloom. So anytime you go, anytime now, by the time the podcast comes out, you should be good to go there. And like with a lot of these, I'll try to put some photos up on the video version. But with a lot of these fields, if you're just looking from a distance, they might be a little thin out in spots, or it's only at this spot over here. So it might not look as cool and as epic as photos you've seen of it, either, photos I've taken or photos that you've seen from other people. So I always like to, with some of these shots, is kind of get down lower for like a lower perspective, and you block out the open areas, and then you kind of focus on have just like the whole section of the rows of daffodils in the front, and then you're like, here would be like the meeting house, or whatever else your subject is, like the tree in the first field I was talking about. So so you kind of always have to, so I like to assess the scene and then kind of figure out, walk around a little bit and kind of see what's going to be the coolest composition. This is also just kind of good if you go to, because all these spots here, just tons of people go to, and every year and over the years. So just to try to see if you can maybe find a little bit different scene, take the scene and just make it, capture it in your own way. So that would be another spot that I would check out, and that gets you back over to more the like downtown center area. And that's a really cool spot as well. And all these spots I'm going to mention, it's all within, 10, 15 minute drive of each other. I don't really think you could walk all of them. I think it's a little too far. So I definitely think you need some kind of transportation for it. You could probably do bikes if you're into kind of biking around, but I think walking it would be a little tough to cover all the spots. So, and then from there you can kind of go a few different ways, but I always like to, and it's a spot that doesn't necessarily have like these huge epic fields, but a spot where I just always like walking around a little bit and has some great views, and that's over the Point area, it's called, and that's the oldest neighborhood in Newport. I believe it has the largest concentration of colonial homes in the whole country. So it's a really cool spot to walk around, and a lot of these old colonial homes will have really cool gardens, and a lot of those include some daffodils. So it's a smaller scale, but again, just walking around and checking out all these older houses, I always love. And kind of back where that area starts, and I always try to park somewhere over there. There is Goat Island, which there's a road over, and there's the hotel there. There's also the Goat Island Lighthouse, and it's a really cool just view because again, you have like the lighthouse there, you have the bridge in the background, Newport Bridge. So not even just for daffodils, but in general. So that's a spot. So I'd recommend, if you have the time, park somewhere over there, walk around the old neighborhood a little bit, enjoy the view there of the lighthouse. And if you ever head there in Christmas time, the lighthouse over there is always decked out in lights. So definitely a must stop at that time of year as well. So I would do that. And then, at any point you can make your way over to Bowen's Wharf area, which is kind of, I guess, the epicenter of most stuff, when you're going to visit Newport. Just tons of restaurants and shops, more views of the water there from the wharf. So it's kind of again, whenever you fit into your schedule there's tons of restaurants to grab lunch, dinner. I'll go over a few food spots after or throughout, I guess, if it fits in, that I like, but you'll never have a shortage of options there, which is awesome. So I'd go over from the Point, and then, if you're trying to kill a little time, getting hungry, plenty of options there. Then, another spot when you make it over that way, again, in more down by the wharf, is to kind of walk over to the Queen Anne Square area. And that's where the Trinity Church is, that I'm sure you've seen kind of photos of if you've looked up Newport. And depending, I don't think they're really blooming much quite yet, but in the next week or so, there are some magnolia trees there that bloom really nice. So you can get some shots of the church in the background with the different blooms there. So I definitely would, when you're walking around that general area, that's a must stop as well. And again, walking around just a lot of these streets, you'll find a lot more blooming trees and just gardens and cool historic homes too. So it's kind of hard to go wrong in that whole area there, from the Point to more heading towards the wharf and like downtown. So again, that's kind of can't miss. So then from there, I would head out to one of the beaches there called Easton's Beach, and that's kind of like the last little area that's considered to be Newport specifically, and kind of where you can start the cliff walk, which is the walking path that you can walk all along the ocean there, and that's where you get to like the mansions and Salve Regina University that has a lot of buildings there along the cliff walk. But as you're making your way down, you're going to have Easton's Beach on your right, and then to the left right there is where there's going to be several kind of connected, I guess, or in a row, fields of daffodils on the left side. And when I was there on Monday, they were pretty full. Not quite there yet, but they were, I would say 2/3, 80%, kind of getting there. So by the time this weekend comes up, I'd say they'd be good to go. So kind of tough to have a background there. There's nothing too, specific, but you could definitely, stop off. You have to park on the right side by the beach and walk over. And so that's a good spot. Again, just kind of some masses of daffodils. Then if you continue on the road there with the beach on your right when it changes from Newport to Middletown, there's a little park on the right, and that's called Dunlap Wheeler Park. And that's kind of the first little section there in Middletown. And that's one of the coolest daffodil fields, I think, to me. There's just a good concentration of them. There's a few benches, a few trees. And then at the end of where the daffodil blooms are, there's this real cool tree. It kind of like angles. It's like kind of diagonal. It's like an evergreen type tree. And so it's just an awesome subject in your photos to kind of have. You can position it where you want. And the backdrop is the water and the coast, and you kind of see more of just your classic New England coastal homes in the background. So from a standpoint of just enjoying it, or from a photography standpoint, that's one of my favorite spots to go see them. And that one was a little behind. I'd say that one's had the most I saw that were still, they hadn't bloomed yet. So maybe by Saturday, Sunday they will be, but it's hard to say. I would assume by the following week they would be pretty much good to go. And I'm not sure when I'll make it back there, or if I will this season, but you can follow along with Discover Newport. They're a great resource just to see what's going on in Newport in any shape or form. And they've been posting some updates pretty regularly of them. So always check in, follow them, and you'll be able to get more up to date than mine. So that's where, back to the daffodils there, that Dunlap Wheeler Park is one of my favorites. It's kind of where the daffodils end, but if you continue up there, you'll get to kind of the little beach where, if you've ever seen the mystery beach tree during Christmas time, someone puts a tree up, people hang up different ornaments and decorations on it. It's really cool. I've got a number of shots of that. Then there's like Second Beach, and then if you keep heading up, dead ends there at Sashawist, the National Wildlife Refuge, which is an awesome spot just to go. But whenever we do have snowy owls around in the winter, they weren't this last year, that spot usually gets at least one. It's hard to say, but so I've been there a lot just to try to photograph those guys, some other wildlife, and always a good visit if you're in Newport and you want to kind of get a cool coastal, another coastal stop, head into Middletown, do the loop out to the refuge and back. So that's another one to mark down. Then from there, it's tough to say exactly the way to get there, because if you turn around, you're going to get back to where Easton's Beach was, and that's where the cliff walk does start. So you could theoretically, well, I guess, never mind, scratch that, because of the section of cliff walk that I think is still closed from when they had some kind of fall in. I don't think you can fully do it to get to the last stop. So, but there's a stretch there of cliff walk, and there's going to be daffodils along the way, different patches, different sizes of them. But then to kind of get over to the main fields of them, where I typically end the day, you're going to need to drive over and park, because that area is still closed. I believe it is. I think I saw that on Monday when I went. So, and the area to look at on a map of where kind of the main fields are on the cliff walk is if you look for Macaulay Hall, and that's part of Salve Regina there. And that's where, if you park and walk down to where you can get on the cliff walk, you walk a little bit to your right, and you'll see the building, and then there's just a huge patch of the daffodils there. And then as you walk down the cliff walk more, there'll be another few patches of them as well. So, and that's where, again, it's one of those where you see the whole field, and not all the grass is covered with them. You know, there's definite section of it. So you kind of, depending on your angle and the height at which you're taking the photo, you can make it look a lot more full or not. So it depends if you want people in your shot or you're just trying to get a cool scene. But the sun does set behind the building there, so I like that spot as kind of like a day ender, because if you do get a cool sunset sky, you're going to have that as your backdrop of the building and all the daffodils. So that's kind of a good spot. So those are kind of the main fields there in Newport of the daffodils. I believe they're still, the website is newportinbloom.org, not .com, .org. So, and they'll have, you know, what's going on, if there's any events specific to daffodil days for the month. They'll also have the fields again where they are. I believe Discover Newport as well on their website kind of has a map with the main 5 or so fields. So that's where, so kind of check to them to get a map, a list. But if you're listening, you can listen back and jot them down. Kind of, I know it's a lot to try to remember. I'm rattling off a lot of stuff. But that's kind of the rundown of all the spots there. So I think, as you saw with last week in Portland, besides just the sights and sounds and taking photos, another important thing is finding out where the best spots to grab food and grab coffee, maybe an adult beverage as well. Those are important, I think, for a lot of people besides myself. So I think next we'll go through those. Now, as far as coffee goes, whether you kind of need it in the morning or like me, sometimes I need it for a little bit of an afternoon kind of pick me up because I've been going all day, and whether just need to keep shooting or at the end of that I have to make the drive back home. So a good coffee spot is always important. There's a few there. I know you're going to have your classic Starbucks, but I always like to hit up the more independent or non-chain ones. A good one there, I think there's a few locations in Newport, is the Nitro Bar. So that's a popular spot. Gotten coffee there a few times. It was good. Another one, I grabbed an iced mocha this past Monday, and it's one of those afternoon pick-me-ups, was at Empire Tea and Coffee. And I believe that's another one that they have several locations. But that was really good. They have snacks and stuff, and they may have a more full menu at some of these, but I haven't gotten any food there from either of them. And then another spot I'd recommend for coffee and breakfast is Cafeology, and that's with a K. And several times I've had breakfast there now, and one of the better breakfast sandwiches, I think, around, and definitely that I've had there in Newport. So I can't recommend that spot enough to kind of start your day if you need a good breakfast sandwich. So I'd say Cafeology. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Then I would say another spot. I think they call themselves Newport's exclusive plant-only spot. It's called Root, Root, and they have like different smoothies and sandwiches and stuff like that, but all vegetarian options, all plant-based options. And then definitely one of my favorite spots to grab lunch. They also do breakfast. I've just never stopped there for breakfast. Is called Crew Cafe, CRU Cafe. And that's a spot as well. A number of times I've either I eat there or I grab it to go and then take it to just like a spot, one of the beach spots or somewhere by the water to enjoy it. But like the other day I stayed there to eat it. I got this, it was like a kind of like a crab burger. It was really good. And their thing there on the side are tots. So you can either get like plain tots or these loaded tots they do. And they also recently, I think it was the start of the year, they expanded their dining room, their chairs area, because there wasn't too much. They have some outside, some inside, and now they have a whole nother dining room, which is awesome. Super nice people there, like the owners and all the workers. So can't recommend that spot enough. So if you're looking for breakfast or lunch, I think they're typically open till 3. But like all these spots I talk about, definitely look them up and, just see the menus and see their schedules. So, but again, any spot that I mentioned as far as like food or drinks, like I've actually stopped there to try them, and none of these were ever like comped or given to me. So these are spots that I've tried, and I'm only recommending ones that I've had a good experience at. So, so those would be, some options as far as for like coffee, breakfast, snack, as you're moving around there. Then when it comes to dinner options, there's like a ton of options. So I guess it depends on what kind of mood you're in, how many people you have with you. But back down by the wharf there, Bowen's Wharf, there's a ton of options. One of the Red Parrot is one that's like super popular. People have been, going to for years. I had a surf and turf there, and it was good. Another spot there is Brick Alley Pub. Another spot that's pretty solid Mexican is Diego's. So if you're kind of feeling that vibe, they're right down there in the wharf. I've had some good meals there. And then another spot there, kind of right on the water, is called The Mooring. I've ate there 2 or 3 times now, and every meal was good. They have these, I think it's on the apps menu, but it's called the Bag of Donuts. And they are lobster and shrimp fritters with a chipotle maple aioli. So, big lobster guy, so I had to try those, and they definitely delivered. I was not let down. So, if you're into that, I'll throw a picture up here. They're definitely worth trying. So, if you go with someone, split them. And I would say, again, there's just a lot of options down there for dinner. So, you'll just have to see. And like I always do when it's a new spot, check the Yelp reviews, check the Google reviews, throw out the ridiculous ones. But if you could see it's overwhelmingly positive, then you're probably on the right track. And then check out the menu. So I definitely utilize all those tools when I'm in new places and have no idea where to go. Yeah, so I think that's kind of what I wanted to cover for Newport. Obviously, it's like anywhere else, you can kind of keep going on and on. But it was a good basic rundown, again, about heading into the city for the Daffodil Days, as they call it, which runs the month of April. And I believe somewhere 1.3 or 1.4 million daffodils bloom throughout the city, which is pretty awesome. So definitely anytime. This is coming out Thursday, so I would say, I mean, it was fun. It was awesome there Monday, so, and I, didn't really miss too much without them being full blooms. So I would say now, anytime go the next few weeks, you'll probably be good to go. But like with any blooms, I always say don't wait. So find some time, go there for a day, go there for an overnight, stay a few nights. Oh, and I haven't stayed there too often because it's only a 90-minute drive from Guildford where I live. But two places I have stayed. There is the Breton Hotel is one I've stayed there a few times, and that one I like a lot. I've stayed there a few times now. They hosted me again at the end of last year, so I enjoyed my stop there. They have some great rooms with views of the harbor. It's a really nice, newer, modern hotel. I think it opened up like 2019, 2020-ish. Forget exactly, but the Brenton there is one that I definitely recommend. And the other hotel that I've stayed there is called Hammett's Hotel, and that's another one that's kind of right down there by the wharf, and you'll have some harbor views as well from there. And that's another newer one. So I'd say either of those would be good spots to stay. I've stayed at both. But I'd say if I had to pick my favorite so far, it's been the Brenton. But there's a lot of other great hotels as well to stay there. So you'll kind of have to see what fits your vibe and budget. And now, again, like I talked about in Portland, if you do go, they will be significantly less to stay than it will be once you get into May, June, July, and August, obviously. So, if you can find a time to do an overnight coming up, could be cool just to stay one night and hit up the daffodil fields, check out a sunset, eat some good food, and enjoy Newport. So that wraps up a little early spring daffodil Newport visit. And I thought I would kind of just go through some other spots that are known to be daffodil destinations in New England. And most of them I've been to at least once or twice. Another one that's staying with Rhode Island is in Bristol, Rhode Island, nearby to Newport. And that's at the Blythewald Mansion. So that's a historic mansion. It's, I believe, 45-room mansion, and that's right there on Narragansett Bay. It's like 33-acre estate, and they have a ton of different gardens there. And I remember there being all these different species of trees and just a really neat setup. So if you're into different gardens and plants, and obviously being this cool, historic, huge mansion right there on the water, it's a cool spot whenever they're open. But I believe starting April 13th, they start their kind of daffodil celebration there. And there's, I believe, over 50,000 daffodils there blooming with some other flowers. So that's the Blythewald. So check that out. And with any of these spots, again, definitely look them up. Some might require admission, donation, tickets ahead of time. So definitely check all that before you go. So I think that's kind of for Rhode Island. Another one in Massachusetts is the Parsons Reserve. They have a daffodil field there that's in Dartmouth, Mass. And that is, I believe I looked at their website before I did this, and they barely started blooming as of April 2nd. So they recommended if you're going to go there to do the middle of the month. And I think they're open till like April 25th. So there's not a big window there, about maybe 10 to 12 day window if you're going to try to go to that one. And that was a really cool spot. I've only been there once, but some different paths, and they have other trails through the property there, not just where the daffodils are. But then that one's a $5 donation per person. So, and you can just pay it when you get there. So something to remember and think about. But again, so look at their website, but I target if you're going to hit that one up the 14th through the 25th of April, it looks like. So that's another spot to check out if you've never been. Then heading over to the western part of Massachusetts in the Berkshires, I stopped there last year in Stockbridge, is Nantucket, and that's it's another like historic mansion, estates there, beautiful property. I think they have like 8 acres of gardens alone, all these amazing different themes of the gardens as you're kind of going through. And I believe it kicks off April 19th. Again, check there. They have their daffodil and tulip festival. So it's not just daffodils, but it's tulips as well. And there's like 150,000 plus blooms going on of the different flowers combined. And that one, you do have to purchase a ticket ahead of time. So make sure you go on the website, pick the day and time you want to go, and get the ticket ahead of time, because they say you can't purchase it on site. But that one was awesome. I actually ended up ordering some bulbs. You can order the different types of daffodil and tulip bulbs, and then they send them to you in the fall so you can plant them in your own gardens. So another cool aspect there. That's run by the trustees. I believe they have a number of spots around Massachusetts. So Nantucket, hope I'm pronouncing that correct. So, but I'm sure you can find it there. Then there's actually, in my home state of Connecticut, there's a number of spots. So not often does Connecticut get talked about in having a multitude of things for people to come check out compared to some other spots in New England. But daffodils, we do have a bunch. I would say my favorite in Connecticut is called Laurel Ridge, and that's up in Litchfield, which is a beautiful part of the state anyway to kind of go visit. That spot there was started back in the 1940s on like a 12 to 15 acre property. And back then they planted 10,000 bulbs to kind of get it started and create this special spot that's still there today. And they've added over the years, and now there's like, I read somewhere there's close to 50 different varieties of daffodils in there. But that's just a beautiful spot. There's like a pond in there, and it's kind of some change in elevation. There's some cool stairs. So that one, I believe, they let people in till like early May, but once it's done, it becomes kind of private property. Last year, I went April 19th, and it was awesome. I would say full peak bloom there, the 19th. So kind of go off that. Could be peak a little before, a little after, but April 19th is when I was there last year. So that's a good time to kind of target. Another spot, they do a big kind of festival celebration is Hubbard Park in Meriden. That I think there's like 650,000 flowers, they say there. I think that was started late 70s as like a community project, and it's kind of grown from there. I know they have a lot of events. The events are, I think, May 4th, 5th. Last year, I went before they actually had the events, and the flowers were basically past. So I don't know if that was earlier than usual or not, honestly. It's the first time I checked it out. So hope they kind of don't end that much before they actually do the event there. But I would kind of hit that one up, second, third week in April at the most. But again, I'm just throwing it out there. I've only really checked for it once. That's another spot. And the town of Essex also has a little Daffodil Days celebration. And that's kind of going on now through April 23rd. There's 3 main fields there. There's one right across from the firehouse, the town firehouse. There's one by Sunset Pond. And then there's one right where the Congregational Church is. Again, if you Google, I'm sure you'll find some kind of better info, a little more detailed. And then when you're down there, it's cool to always walk down Main Street. They have some different daffodil-themed stuff going. And that's where the historic Griswold Inn is. So you could always pop in there, grab a lunch, dinner, drink, or so on. And then trying to think where else. Oh, there's one spot in Mystic called the Denison Homestead Museum, and there's some property there as well. I believe there's over 10,000 blooms, they say, when they're all in bloom there. And then coming up on this Saturday, actually, is their Daffodil Day. They have some stuff going on. I made it there last year for the first time, but again, it was past, so a lot of the flowers were kind of dead. So again, look up these spots and kind of find out more info on them. Just figured I would throw them out there on top of the Newport, which was kind of the bulk of the episode. And then a few other spots I know are known for them I haven't been to. One that I kind of made it to a little late last year was Nantucket does a big daffodil festival celebration. Goes on this year from April 25th to 28th. Last year it was just kind of this awful kind of cold, rainy weather, if I remember right. So I decided not to go then, and I made it there kind of the following weekend. I think it was like May 6th, 7th. That was my first visit there, and so I caught some of them left. There was a few daffodils left, and a little bit of the motif vibe that was up around downtown, but I missed the bulk of it. So we'll see if I get there this year. But on Saturday, that's the Saturday of that weekend, is when they do their the car parade. I think they have like a flower show, a number of other stuff. Again, you could look up online. So that's a fun spot if you want to take a kind of early season ferry out to Nantucket and celebrate the spring and daffodil days there. Look that up. And I think that's what I wanted to cover in today's episode, and to give you guys some ideas for the next few weeks of if you want to chase some early blooms around, if you're a fan of daffodils, or if you're just kind of looking for something to do for the day, if you happen to live nearby any of these spots. I highly recommend all of them. And we'll see where I end up taking the next episode. I have a few ideas, but I haven't fully decided yet. So keep an eye out for that. And I think we'll wrap it up here. And also update on the upcoming solar eclipse for this coming Monday. As of now, knock on wood, the weather is looking great, which is a lot of us really excited. So hopefully it stays that way. And I'll be up in northern Vermont. So for everyone traveling for it, good luck. Hopefully we see something special and I get some awesome photos to share with you guys. So for now, this is Ryan Zipp, and we are signing off of episode 3 of the Exploring New England podcast. I'll see you guys next week.